Hi, welcome to today's session. This series is one that I like to do for my beginning mat classes. It's going to give you a little taste of what the Pilates world is like. So we're going to go ahead and start sitting facing the end of your mat, knees bent, feet flat. You want your feet about hip width apart, and you're going to go ahead and just place your arms on your lower legs and fold your torso over so that you're relaxed on top of your thigh bones here. You're just going to take some nice deep breaths. And what I want you to think about is that the way that the front of your body is compressed into your leg bone, it's allowing you to open up through the back line of the body with each breath. Two more breaths here, really trying to expand through the back ribs. And on this last exhale, I want you to stack your spine up to sitting. Your hands are going to be on your shin bones. Shoulder blades are down the back, starting with a nice tall spine. We're going to do some spinal articulation now. So on the inhale, I want you to think about lifting your sternum to the ceiling. It's happening from the upper spine, not from the lower spine. So I'm going to put a little pressure into my shins, and I'm just lifting my chest bone into the ceiling on the inhale. And then on the exhale, I'm deepening the lower abs, and I'm curling back off those bony points of my pelvis. And pressing into the shins, shoulders down on the inhale, lifting that chest up. And exhale, deepen the abs, curling back off. We call those the sits bones at the bottom part of the pelvis. And two more here. And scoop and curl. Shoulder blades are staying down the back. Don't get hunched up by your ears here. And last one. And then scoop and rolling back. And from here, you're going to roll all the way down to your mat. Scoot yourself in so that your heels are a little bit closer to your booty there. And you're going to maintain that hip width with the feet and the knees. Make sure that your knees and your feet are in alignment. You don't want the knees knocking in or splaying open. So everything's trying to be nice and lined up. And then we're just gonna take a little attention to our pelvis. So I want you to think of the heels of the hands being placed on the front of each hip bone. From here, connect the thumbs and connect the pointer fingers. You're gonna make a little triangle there, and then just fold that triangle down so that your fingertips are reaching for your pubic bone and the heels of the hand are on the bony parts of the pelvis. From here, I want you to imagine that you have a bowl full of water on top of that triangle, and we are going to play around with spilling that water. So I want you just to start by rocking the pelvis without paying too much attention to the muscles moving. I just want you to think about the bony points moving. I'm just gonna do a few rocks here. And what we're doing is we're using this method to find what I like to call neutral pelvis. And that's where we like to do a lot of our abdominal work when we're on our backs. So slowly start to incorporate a little bit more intention in the movement and a little bit more lower abdominal engagement. So you want to think about the muscles between those two hip bones and pubic bone underneath the hands there, trying to engage as you scoop and curl that pubic bone to the ceiling. So if you're spilling water towards your belly button, those abdominals are closer, pulling nice and tight. And then as you let that tailbone get heavy and you stop spilling the water, you're in that neutral pelvis. And then pull the abdominals in, and you're gonna spill that water towards your belly button. And make the tailbone heavy so those three bony points become even again. Two more of those. Exhale as you curl the pelvis, spilling that water. And and back to your neutral. And one more. So this position we call imprint of the lower spine. In this position where you are two hip bones and pubic bone all on the same plane is your neutral pelvis. You will feel that you have a little bit of space in that lower spine when you're in neutral pelvis. That is okay. As long as you're maintaining an engagement of the lower abdominals, the rib cage is nice and closed, that is where you want to be. All right, so we are going to go into that imprint spine one more time, and we're going to take it to a little bit more of a full movement. So take your arms off the pelvis. I want your arms by your sides on the mat. Think about the shoulder blades are pulling down towards those heels, and then you want to envision that you're pulling the heels up towards the shoulder blades. So that's just going to anchor everything on the mat. From here, you're going to inhale in this neutral pelvis. On the exhale, deepen the lower abs to find your imprint. It's that spilling the water into the belly button. And then you're just going to slowly peel one vertebrae at a time off the mat. And today we're just going to the bottom of the shoulder blades. We're not going all the way off. Hi, Peanut. Yeah, bridges. And then soften through the rib cage. And you're going to roll down the spine one vertebrae at a time all the way back to your neutral pelvis. And again, deepen the lower abs. Draw that pubic bone towards the ceiling. You're spilling the water to your belly button. You're still pulling the shoulder blades down the back and the heels towards the shoulder blades as you come up. Inhale at the top. Exhale, soften through the upper ribs, and you're going to try to roll down the spine one vertebrae at a time. Last one here. Spilling the water to the belly button. Continue peeling, continue pulling the heels towards the shoulder blades towards the heels. You should be feeling those hamstrings and glutes firing here. Inhale at the top, heavy through the ribs, trying to roll down the spine one vertebrae at a time, all the way back to your neutral pelvis. Maintaining your neutral pelvis here, you can either keep your arms where they are on the mat, or you can return them to that bowl position on the pelvis if you need a little bit more guidance. And we are doing single leg floats. Now, neutral pelvis, again, heels of the hands, fingertips are all on the same plane. You're going to inhale. On the exhale, deepen the abdominals to solidify that pelvis where it is, and slowly peel one foot off the mat to try to float that leg up. And inhale, place it back down. In this beginner class, I like to do all of the single leg movements on one side for this. And if you are doing this properly, you should be able to feel a connection starting to fire between the bottom of the ribs and the top of the pelvis on the side where the leg is floating. Pay special attention that you're not shortening the distance between the rib and the hip on that side. You're keeping that length, and you're using the hands on that pelvis to make sure that you're not rocking the pelvis up and down or side to side. We're going to switch legs. Inhale at the bottom. Exhale, flattening through the abdominal muscles, trying to solidify the pelvis, and you're going to float the other leg up. Inhale, place it down. And exhale, widen the abs as you float. And inhale back down. Using the tactile of the hands on the front and then feeling yourself in the ground on the back to be able to tell whether you are rocking or shifting in that pelvis as your leg is floating. Good. We are going to revisit that same movement, but we are going to work on our cervical nods first. So you're going to take your hands, place your fingertips along the back side of the head. My hands are not interlaced. I'm not pulling my head with my hands. I'm just giving a little bit of an additional support to the back of my skull. I say elbows wide, but what I really mean is that you can see your elbow in your peripheral vision still, and your shoulder blades are down the back. So you don't want to be here where your elbows are flat and your shoulders are up. Just draw those shoulder blades down and those elbows will float right into position. You're maintaining that neutral pelvis, so don't spill any water out of your bowl. Inhale here. Exhale, flatten the lower belly. And then think about the ribs drawing towards the pelvis. So the bottom tips of the rib cage are pulling towards the top of the hip bones. Inhale, you're lengthening as you go back down. Exhale, flatten through the lower belly, close the ribs to curl. And inhale down. As you do this, if you're thinking about the movement starting from the ribs closing, you should be feeling abdominals firing, not neck firing. And if you're maintaining your neutral pelvis, you should not be feeling any hip flexor or quad firing either. So the front of the legs and hips is relaxed, the neck is relaxed, and it's happening all in the abdominals. You're gonna stay curled up here, and now we're adding those single leg floats back in. We are going to alternate this time, so it'll be a little bit of a march. You're trying to keep the same distance between the bottom of the rib and top of the hip as you go through this entire marching series. So inhale, exhale, deepen the abs, float the right leg up, try to get it 90 degree at the hip, 90 degree at the knee. Inhale, float it down. And exhale, left leg floats. And inhale down. We're gonna alternate legs with the focus, having all of the tension in the abdominal space, not in the neck, not in the front of the thigh, not in the front of the hip. Feet should be relaxed. If you put too much energy in either pointing or flexing the foot, it'll be taking the focus away from the energy on the abdominals. This next one, you're gonna float the right leg up, stay here for a breath. Next exhale, float the left leg up, and you're just gonna do deep breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Two more breaths. And last one. Lower the torso. Hug your knees gently into your chest. A little bit of a release for that lower spine. And go ahead and come up to sitting. So we just did a lot of work trying to focus on finding engagement in the front line of the torso. Now we're gonna swivel around, lie on our belly, and try to start activating the back line of the torso. So go ahead and flip over onto your mats, and I want you to stack the hands, and then you're going to place the forehead on top of the hands here. Legs are long. They can be about hip width apart if you want. If you are feeling a little more advanced today, you can squeeze those inner thighs and bring those legs all the way together. It doesn't matter to me which one you do. From here, you're still trying to scoop through the lower abs and pull that belly button up to the ceiling. So what you're going for is your neutral pelvis, but lying on your stomach here. So if you have too much of this arch in the lower back, that is going to have you moving from the wrong muscles. Think about hip bones and pubic bone all on the same plane. Belly is pulling in nice and tight. So you can see there how I have the arch, and then my lower back lengthens a little bit. So forehead is on the stacked hands. Think about reaching your shoulders up to the ears. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And then draw the shoulder blades down the back. And now from here on out, you're gonna try to keep those shoulder blades as far away from the ears as possible. Inhale here. On the exhale, your hands stay down. Think about pressing your elbows into the mat, drawing the shoulder blades down, and just lift your sternum forward. So I'm not trying to pull up with my lower back. I'm trying to stay engaged in my lower abs, and I'm trying to float my head and reach my sternum forward. Inhale, lower it back down. And exhale, shoulders stay pulling down the back, abs stay lifting, sternum reaches forward. And inhale. And exhale to lift. If you're pulling the shoulders down and pushing into the elbows, you should feel the space under the armpits starting to fire. That's a good thing. One more here. Now you're going to keep the forehead on the hands, and we're going to move the legs one at a time for today. So abs are still tight and lifted. Your pubic bone and hip bones are all pressing into the mat. That way you can feel if you're staying even. Think about reaching long out the right leg, and you're reaching about half an inch to an inch longer with that energy, and that leg is going to just float right off, and then lengthen it back down. And then reaching long out the left leg, reach so long that it floats off, and back down. The main focus here is that you're moving the upper leg bone in the pelvis from that upper hamstring and lower glute connection. As you do this with single legs, you can take note as to whether you're rocking in towards the leg that's lifting or away from it. Ideally, you're staying even and you don't feel the pressure change on those hip bones at all. So right leg lifts, and then left leg lifts. Now both legs are lifted. Check in with your abs. Make sure your abs are connected. Reaching long out those legs and press into the elbows. Lengthen through the sternum. So now your sternum is lifted and your legs are reaching. Abs are still tight. Long spine. And then lower it all back down. Left leg reaches up. Right leg meets it. Shoulder blades pull down, sternum lengthens. Everything lowers. And right leg lifts. Left leg meets it. Shoulder blades pull down, sternum lengthens. Abs are tight, spine is long. Everything lowers. One more. Left leg reaches. Right leg meets it. Sternum reaches. And coming down. Good. Go ahead and press back into a child's pose. So you just bring your knees in and you're going to fold over, extend your arms. This is a more extreme version of the position we were in the beginning. Your chest is now on top of your thighs again, and you can utilize that to try to breathe into the back line of the body. Expand the backs of the ribs. Good. Okay, so we have engaged the front line of the body and the back line of the body, and now we are going to lie on our side and get a little bit of our side lying leg action in. This one, you want to lie down and you want to line up the back of the shoulder, back of the ribs, back of the pelvis, all along the back side of your mat. I like to place my head in my hand here. I know that for some people that might be a little bit hard on the line of the neck. You can also go ahead and lie your head down on your arm. I suggest placing a little towel or pillow under there to create a nice alignment if needed. If you would like, you can place a towel under your head here. Okay? So your spine is lined up. You have your head where you want it. I want you to bring your legs forward. So if your feet are flexed, your toes are touching the front line of the mat. And from here, think about reaching the top hip long. So I want your feet to be even. I don't want this top leg to appear to be shorter. So reaching long out the top leg, long out the top hip. Feel this bottom oblique, so the abdominals on that bottom side of the body are lifting. And you are going to have your front hand on the mat for this series. As you get more advanced, you can start placing the hand other places. But for now, keep that hand down because I want you to focus on moving this top leg in the socket of the hip and pelvis rather than trying to stabilize everything. So use that hand as a kickstand. And I want you to internally rotate the top leg a tiny bit from that femur. Abs are tight, and you're just gonna lift that leg up, and you're trying to get it a little bit above pelvis height. However, you wanna keep that length in that top side. So you don't wanna lift it so high that now your two hip bones are uneven. I like to say that if your hip bones are headlights, they're going to stay even the whole time. So that top leg's going up and down, internally rotating the top of the leg in the socket each time. I don't have a lot of internal rotation myself, so I know it looks like I'm doing just parallel, but I promise I am trying as hard as I can to internally rotate that leg. And again, this is all about moving from the right space. It's not about how high or how big the movement is. So just really trying to find that these muscles on the outside of the hip are what's doing the work. Stay up on the next one. You are still internally rotated. I am as much as I can. Abs are tight. You're gonna swing that leg to the front of the body, go through the center, and then the leg is going to the back of the body. And you're trying to maintain the same height as you go front and back. Again, those hip bones are headlights. You're trying to not rock and have that break in the pelvis. Think about those glutes squeezing as you bring the leg behind you. And we're gonna go into circles. So bring the leg to the front. Think of leading up and around with the heel, and then it lengthens to the back and returns to center. Front, I'm trying to think about that internal rotation, that heel is leading up and around. Try to maintain that length in the hip. Last one in this direction, and then we're gonna reverse directions. And bring the heel back behind you, and then it lifts up and around to the front. And again. Try to maintain that internal rotation. I know mine is getting a little bit lost. Two more in this direction. And last one. Good. And lower that leg. And go ahead and come up through the center, and we are going to set the whole thing up on the other side. So, I will grab my towel. Set up the shoulders, ribs, and hips along the back line of the mat. Your head can be in line on the towel, or you can be up on the hand. Bring the flexed feet forward so that the toes are in line with the front of the mat, and then set your hips. So reach that top hip long. Keep reaching long out that leg. Internally rotate the top leg, top of the leg, and think of pushing out through that heel to go up and back down. And pushing out and up. I have a cone kitty. Come on, cone kitty. So it's the same idea here. You're trying to get the leg a little bit higher than the pelvis. Hi, buddy. This is Shaggy. Bye, Shaggy. Now, keep the leg up. Keep that internal rotation. Keep reaching long out the top leg. Abs are tight, and you swing that leg to the front. Go through the center and swing the leg to the back. As you swing the leg, it's very slow movement. Think about the pelvis staying exactly where it is, and the leg is moving the socket. You want the leg a little bit higher than the hip so that you're really having to activate this side glute to hold the leg up. What you don't want is that the leg is so high because you're displacing the pelvis. So really try to keep those hips even, but also try to keep the leg slightly above the pelvis so that you're having to use those muscles. Going into your circles, leg goes to the front, up and around to the side and to the back. Again, as you lift that leg, don't let your torso change in length. If you are in the lying down position, you should be finding that the distance is the same between the rib and the hip on the top and bottom side. If you're up on your hand a little bit, the top one will be a little bit shorter, but you want to maintain that. Reverse the circles. You want to maintain that throughout the entire series. Always thinking of reaching out through the leg as long as you can. Three more here. Good. Okay, lower that leg down. Come sitting up. And let's just get a little glute stretch. So I want you to have the bottom leg bent. So I'm gonna do, the bottom leg is bent in front of me, and I'm gonna do the top leg crossed over, and I'm gonna try to match knee to knee here in front, and then drop the sits bone or that hip bone of the top leg down into the mat. That's gonna give me a little bit of a stretch. If you don't have the flexibility to have the bottom leg in front of you as much, you can have it out to the side and then just press that knee down here. So whichever you choose, this is gonna be a little more of an extreme stretch if you have the knees stacked or close to stacked. And then just a slight hinge forward, abs tight, flat backs, and the sits bones, those bony points at the bottom of your pelvis that we talked about earlier on, behind you. Some deep breaths there. And then we're gonna switch sides. So again, I am going to put my bottom leg down on the mat with the knee in front of me. If you choose, you can have that knee going out to the side if you don't have the flexibility to bring it all the way across. And then I'm gonna bring my top knee to try to stack it as best I can. You really need to get the sits bone or that bony point of the pelvis all the way down on the mat of that top leg. So then you're gonna hinge forward. So you're really thinking of reaching forward through the sternum, flat back here. My tailbone and sits bones are going out behind me. You're not just collapsing here, so stay nice and long. And coming all the way up. So that was our beginner series for mat class. I hope you enjoyed it. Shaggy definitely enjoyed those side lying legs, let me tell you. We should call that the kitty cat series. All right, I'll see you next time.